Training camp is approaching for the New York Jets. Which undrafted free agents have the best shot at making the team and maybe even making an impact down the line? Let's talk about that today on Locked On Jets.
You are Locked On Jets, your daily New York Jets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. This is the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Wednesday, June 26th, 2024, and I'm your host, John B. from GanggreenNation.com. Thanking you so much for making the show your first listen or first watch every day. Subscribe to the show for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you'll get new episodes as soon as they're posted. If you enjoy the show and are listening on a podcast source, give it a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube and enjoy the show, give this episode a big thumbs up. Helps us out, helps other Jets fans find the podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Well, training camp's approaching for the New York Jets, just a couple of weeks away. And one of the things you watch for in training camp are which undrafted free agent signings produce for your team, which guys earn a roster spot. And on today's show, I have my friend Craig Sniffen with me. Craig writes for me at GanggreenNation.com. Best draft analyst I know. He's going to help us break down the Jets' undrafted free agent class of 2024.
I'll admit it, I'm a little biased because he writes for my website, but for my money, our guest today is the smartest analyst covering the New York Jets. It's Craig Sniffen, who writes under the name Superhuman at my website, GanggreenNation.com, here today to talk about some of the Jets' undrafted free agent signings. Craig, thanks so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, John.
So, Craig, before we started recording, we were talking about a few of the undrafted free agent prospects the Jets signed, and there was one who I think kind of stuck out to you, Leonard Taylor, defensive lineman the Jets signed out of Miami.
Yeah, I had him as like a late 4th, early 5th round pick. It kind of worries sometimes because, when a guy is that high and he goes undrafted, sometimes stuff gets around the league that, maybe something's a problem. I don't know, maybe it was a situation. A lot of the scouts find that stuff out, and they'll get it around. But I mean, he's got good talent. He needs to build up his strength a little bit. He needs to work on his hands, but he's got the athletic ability to be at least a rotational guy early on. So we'll see what they do.
What about Taylor really stuck out to you when you were scouting him?
Well, he had when he was in sophomore and junior years, 2 years ago, he was really good. I mean, he came out gangbusters. He had some sacks, he had some nice tackles. Even though he wasn't playing a lot because he was young, he was rather good. And then all of a sudden, last year he didn't do as well as he did the year before. I don't know why. Maybe that's why he kind of sank in the draft and didn't go so undrafted. But I mean, the talent's there. I mean, he's only 22 years old. I mean, just barely turned 22, so he's a kid. I mean, he's got some growth to do to him. I mean, he can build up. He's still good. He can take some, add some weight. He can add some good weight, some strength. Plus working with Williams and stuff like that. I mean, he can learn some things, and maybe he develops. All these kids have to develop. I mean, the top guys and the bottom guys all have to develop. So you always find some guy like that. One of those guys you didn't think too much about, and all of a sudden, wow, he really, really blossomed. Well, if he's in the right situation, has the right frame of mind, and works hard, he can develop. He has the talent to do so. So other players don't, but he does.
And you write about this a lot. I think it's very easy to forget about is that nobody who's drafted is a finished project.
Mm-hmm.
Is that all of these players need to work and improve, and even guys who maybe didn't perform at the level you were hoping in college, they can still have time to improve if they have a good work ethic, if they get the right situation in the right scheme. And sometimes, especially when we talk about undrafted free agents, maybe stuff happened in college. It wasn't their fault. They were in the wrong scheme or something like that. And, they get to the pros, they can find the right situation and they end up blossoming.
It depends, a lot of it depends on situation a lot of times. Sometimes, personalities fall into play with coaches and stuff like that. You don't know what went on. You didn't, did the right thing with them or something like that. And you think the playing time you normally got, a lot of things. That's why guys transfer too. They think that they can do someplace better. And then you look at also like if you go to like an Alabama or something like that, you're almost getting NFL coaching there. You go to some other smaller schools, they don't have the same type of coaching. So when they get to the coaching in the NFL, maybe they, it sparks an interest. It sparks like they learn some techniques they had no idea about, and so those guys sometimes can really, really come and surprise you.
What do you think Taylor's chances of making the roster are this year for the Jets?
Well, I think he can. I think it's between him and Tenzel Smart to make the squad. I mean, the Smart's been around for a while. He knows everybody likes him. He's well liked on the team, which goes a long way. I mean, locker room stuff is great, and plus he's not a bad player. But Williams he's younger, so we want to take the chance on a guy that's got talent and is young and you can develop. Plus he's cheap. I mean, he's a rookie. He only, I think, he had $10,000 signing bonus, something like that. That's all he got. So he's on a UDFA contract, which is like $800,000 a year. So you can stick him around for a few years, and it's not going to cost you that much money.
All right, everything clicks for him. The Jets coaching staff puts him in the right situation. How good do you think he can eventually be?
I mean, he could. He's not going to be a Q Williams, but Taylor's got a chance to become maybe like a John Franklin Myers type player. Somebody who can get some sacks, make some difference. Now John's a little bigger than he is, but he has a chance to build up his body a little bit and gets a little stronger. If he gets stronger in his legs, he can actually would help him out quite a bit. So.
All right, another guy we talked about a little bit before we started recording, a guy the Jets drafted out of Duke who comes from a relatively famous football family. Name is Al Blades Jr. What can you tell us about him?
Well, Al, his father played, at Miami with him, and I think 97 through 2000. He ended up going into the league. He was played for a couple of years, and tragically he died of a car accident in like 2003. Of course, he Brian Blades and Benny Blades. Those are all, one played with the Lions, one played with the team from Washington, and even HB Blades played with Washington. I think it's his older brother or something like that, or his cousin. There's so many of them out there that you kind of need a scorecard to keep track of them all. But I mean, he's got some talent. He's kind of slow. Where is he? He plays a very physical game, which is nice in college. Problem is, when he gets to the pros, those guys are a lot bigger. And I think he has a chance to be like kind of like a +1, kind of like a he plays a cornerback in college, and he also plays a safety. And I think that's where his spot is, maybe as a strong safety or a third down guy that can come in, maybe cover some tight ends and be physical around the line of scrimmage. But his peak is very low. I mean, he's not going to be like a MC3 or something like that. He's not going to be Sauce or anything like that. He's a bottom of the roster type of guy. But he can still play. I mean, these guys all can play because they're all great because they all made it to the NFL. There's very few people that make it to the NFL. So I mean, he has chances, but it's going to be a smaller place than like some other players that the Jets have.
Yeah, I'm going to throw a couple statements out here because you hit on a couple of things that I think are important. Is one of the things, and I always say I need to watch this myself because you're right. Anybody who makes it to the NFL, you're at like the top 0.001%.
Exactly.
I mean, you make it to the NFL, you were a great college player. So like there's no such thing as a bad NFL player, right?
Exactly.
And the other point is, bottom of the roster player, if you find a good guy who's like a decent depth guy, and an undrafted free agent, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a big success story, right?
I mean, some guys, they'll get bounced out of the league, and some guys, somebody gets injured, they step up, and all of a sudden, wow, we didn't realize he could do that. He's that good. And then he finds a spot. He finds his niche on the team. You don't have to be able to do everything. You have to be able to do one thing really well. That's the key. If you can find one thing you do really well, you can be an asset to your team. You don't have to be everything. It doesn't have to be the greatest of all time. But if you can do one thing well, if you can stop the tight end from catching passes, if you can cover the slot, if you can blitz off the edge occasionally, all those little things. All you need is that one little niche that team can use. It helps them win, and you'll find a spot on the team.
Today's episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers.
All right, Craig, you're the expert here. I mean, I like to think I have good analysis here, but I mean, I trust you as much as I trust anybody because you have such a great football mind. Where would you like to go next? Is there another player that excites you from this undrafted free agent class?
Yeah, I like a lot of the guys. I mean, they're all going to have to develop some way, shape, or form. I mean, Brady Lem at Arkansas, he's got size. He's going to have to build strength. He'll be a practice squad kind of guy. He's a guard, and he has a chance to stick with the team as a practice squad player. And then if there's an injury or something like that, maybe mid-year he can come up, gain a little strength and some of that. But he played a lot. He started 47 to 48 games in a row. I mean, he only missed one game. It was the first game of the year this last year, but it was like against like Western Carolina or something like that he missed. So it wasn't a big game, and they held him out because of that. And they won by 31 points anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. But he's got, he's schooled. He's been played for many, many years. Arkansas is a great team that has always has a good offensive line. And if he played there for, 47 straight games as a starter, then, he's got talent. So he's big. He's 6'6", almost 6'6", only about 305 pounds. So he might have had a little good weight to him, but I mean, he's better probably. He did really well in run blocking, maybe pass blocking. He's going to have to find some techniques that maybe, like say coaching, and Arkansas, they like to run the ball a lot. So maybe with the Jets, you can find somebody to teach them how to pass block a little bit better, pick up stunts better and stuff like that. But I mean, he's still young. So, I mean, he's not that old. He's 24, but I mean, he's still not that old. So, but I mean, just tough to find guys that fit. They had Braden McGregor. They got out of Michigan. He's an edge guy. He's got good size. He played for the national championship team. He started every game. He didn't have a lot of stats, but he's one of those guys who you can count on. He's always going to be at a spot. He's not a hero ball player. One of those guys that races after everything and leaves his edge empty. Yeah, he always makes sure that he controlled his edge, and then he went and raced. So he can have as great stats as a lot of other guys do, but he didn't miss any tackles either. He didn't allow any huge gaping holes in there. And you can tell he played with Jim Harbaugh, so he's well schooled. He's going to play the right way. And it's nice to have guys like that on your team. So
I know it's always a little dicey to make comparisons, but I've heard a lot of buzz around the guy out of Michigan you just mentioned, Braden McGregor. Is there like a player you might compare him to if everything goes right for him?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, Triple J. We got Jermaine Johnson at the Jets. I mean, kind of the same type of player. Maybe not as quick and not as fast as him, but maybe he's a little bit stronger. I mean, these are effort guys. These are guys that really give you everything they got, and they're smart. They know how to play the game. They play it the right way, and you can count on them. If you ask them to do something, you can count on them. And those guys are important.
And going back, you were just talking about Brady Lem out of Arkansas, and you kind of just hit on a point you went to earlier, where what these guys do in college kind of matters. Where in Arkansas is a program where you really run the ball, so naturally any offensive lineman you take out of there is going to need to work on his pass protection. What are some of the skills you look for a player like him to develop as he enters the NFL?
Hands. You want to get his hands out because. A lot of times, and when they come out of college, they'll get their hands chopped. And when you get your hands chopped, they can get to your chest. When you get to your chest, they can push you back. And then your anchor kind of gets, it gets defeated. You can't really hold the guy back, or he'll get around you. He'll get to your shoulder. Now understanding what angle you have to be at when you're blocking on that, especially on stunts and stuff like that, because the guys are coming at different angles. They're not coming straight at you. They're going to kind of whip around you. You have to understand, where you're going to drop your leg back, how you're going to do that. There's a lot of different techniques for it. And it just seems like it's just like you just block the guy, but no, there's a lot of technique going on to pass blocking, especially interior in the line. His arm's a little short, but that's okay because he plays interior. It's not like he's on the outside, but he's one of those guys that he's got enough talent that if you develop him, he could become a solid guy. He might not be a Pro Bowler, but he might be a guy you can stick in there at, I think he's a right tackle, and you can stick him in there for a long time and let him play. In fact, I sent Joe Douglas a letter about one of the guys from Nebraska that I thought he could try and get as a UDFA. Guy's Nura Nuruli, and he's a German player. Came in, and he played real well this year. He's a center guard kind of guy, but he ended up getting picked up by the New Orleans Saints. So I was kind of upset that we didn't get him. But I was watching another player, and I wasn't even watching him. I was watching somebody else, and he blocked the guy from Illinois who was one of he was a first-round pick. And the guy didn't sniff the quarterback at all. He was very, very impressive. I was like, wow, I watched some more tape of him. I was really impressed, but like I say, we didn't get him. So, but you only get so many players, you can't take everybody.
One of the things that was interesting to me about this year's draft class for the or not this year's undrafted free agent class is, it seemed like the bulk of the players were on the defensive side of the ball. And one of the first areas I look at, I try and figure out which players are most likely to stick is, which spots the Jets are weak at. But it seemed like most of their targets this year as undrafted free agents were defensive type players. And I was just interested if you had any thoughts on that.
No, I mean, it's interesting the fact that a lot of the guys are older. I mean, a lot of guys are 24, 25, and 26 years old, which is kind of, Leonard Taylor is the only guy. He's 22. And then there's, I think McGregor is 23, and everybody else is 24, 25, or 26. So those guys are older guys. Maybe they wanted somebody who's a little more, savvy about football, maybe not so young, because they feel they're going to try and go for a championship this year. They don't want to, have a guy that's going to take 2 or 3 years to develop. They want maybe a guy that's played a few more games or something like that. Maybe that was their thinking. Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys out there. I mean, like I said before, we had that guy Pee Wee Jarrett. He is a quarterback. He had problems. He had some surgeries that weren't quite healed when they went to mini camp, stuff like that. So, but I watched him. He has an arm. My God, he could throw the ball. He's 70. I mean, he was running. He threw the ball 70 yards in the air. It was right on target. It was above. He's playing in a Division II league, so it's not like he had great players around him. But it was impressive. I wanted to see him play, but maybe next year he's going to have to heal up or something like that. So,
gotcha. Let's go on. I mean, I just would you be willing to go down your list because I'm just really interested in your take.
Well, I mean, I think now trying to find whether guys like you say Blades, like I say, I think he's going to be more of like a strong safety type, +1 kind of guy. Who else was in my Tyler Harrell out of Miami? Here's another guy who played a lot of years. I mean, he played all over the place. He played by Alabama. He played in, I think, Louisville. He played Miami for 1 year. Guys he's got 4 sub-3 speed. He played. I think he ran 4.29 at the combine or something like that. But I mean, he had 1 year where he caught about 18 passes, but for 500 something yards. He had like a 29.1 average for catches. So he's a field stretcher, but he never got a chance to. I mean, he never stuck with any team. No one really could bring out the best of him. I guess he had 18 catches for 1 year. But for 500 something yards. So there's a guy that you never know. I mean, maybe he finds something he can work with one of the receivers the Jets have, or maybe Wilson takes him under his wing and shows him a few things, and something clicks. You got nothing to lose with these guys. They're basically free players. I don't know. A lot of the guys like Marcus Wiley, he's out of Florida A&M. He played at Stewart Cookme before that. So, those guys, they could be good like special teams type players and stuff like that. Lincoln Seffick, he's a tight end out of South Alabama, more of like a move tight end. He's not going to be a blocker. He's got a guy that he catches the ball, runs around a little bit. He's not real fast. I don't think he'll make the team, but he's an impressive kid. You put him on the field, he'll give you every 100%, 10%, and he'll be productive. He finds open spaces. He knows how to find space in the zones and stuff like that. Not real big, he's only 6'2.5" or something like that, 6'2 3/4. Goes about 240 pounds. So I mean, he's kind of like a new move tight end they have. I don't know if they want to keep a guy like that or not, but he has some talent like that. Jackson Sherman out of Cal inside linebacker type. I think he lacks a little bit of instincts and stuff like that. We'll see if maybe he works with Mosley. Yeah, he can learn some things from him. He's a tough kid. Comes in, he made like 240 tackles in the last 3 years. He's a quality play guy, but you see he hesitates before the play, and so he doesn't really get in there to get the play. He doesn't really get the tackle in the backfield. He gets the guy at the line of scrimmage a couple of feet over. So he lacks I'd say, watching the play and understanding what's happening before it happens almost. Watch the players and how they, certain keys that they have. You watch the guard, he pulls. You want to be able to fill that hole. And depends what kind of defense you play also. It depends if you're, trying to work on against a, zone blocking team or it was a straight, like a gap team. There's a difference in there. So I think he's got talent, but he's kind of slow. He's only like 4.66 on the 40, so he's not going to. He'd be more like a 2-down player, but you never know. We'll see what happens for these guys.
Thank you. A lot of great information there, and you hit on a couple of things that I think are really things teams should look for. You mentioned potential to contribute on special teams because when you're talking about undrafted free agents, you're typically talking about the guys who are going to be bothering the roster guys. And if you're like the third string guy at your position, you're probably not going to see much on the field at your natural position. The way to get on the field is through special teams. So I think it's obviously a key point. And we talked about the receiver from Miami, Tyler Harrell. I think another thing you should really look for are guys who maybe just flew under the radar but flashed here or there. You mentioned his ability to make big plays, and I think that's sometimes. Yeah,
also, the new rule this year with with kickoffs, you want to have a guy that be able to run kickoffs. There's a few guys that they had that were that kind of player. They return kicks and things like that. Tulane or something like that. Now, how's that relate to the NFL? We'll see, but I'm sure they're looking at a lot of guys that can maybe give them a field position or maybe take it all the way, because it's going to be different this year. No one knows what's going to happen with the kickoffs this year because it's all brand new. Everybody's talking about like, don't use your kicker because you want to use somebody else to kick off so he can tackle the guy and your kicker doesn't get hurt. That's brand new. I mean, so there's a lot of things, moving parts on that. So I'm sure they're going to try a lot of guys that way. So when some of the guys they brought in have kick return specialties, so I'm sure they're going to work them also.
I'm so interested in that because everybody's got a theory on how this is going to impact the new kickoff rules. Impact everything. So I have no idea I have no idea who's right, but I've heard about 30 different theories on how this is going to impact the league, and I'm really excited to find out who's right about that. It's
the most exciting a kickoff has been in years. I mean, last few years, of course, has been like, just kick it out of the end zone. So now that they've kind of like, I don't know, they put a monkey wrench into all the special team guys. I'm sure they're all sitting up nights, thinking about, okay, what can I do? So the special team coaches all have ulcers right now, probably, but because they can't do anything. There's no hitting right now. You can't in OTAs, you can't hit, so you can't really practice it. So how's it going to work? They don't know. They don't know idea.
It's one of the things I love about the NFL because for like 15 years, the NFL put these rules into place trying to phase out the kickoff. And then it's like last year, somebody in the league office is like, wait a minute, the kickoff's going away. What's going on? It's like, yeah, it's because of all the rules you put in the last 15 years to get rid of it. Now
yeah,
it's a problem.
Yeah, because everybody goes, and when it's going to be a kickoff, everybody goes and gets themselves a beer and another slice of pizza, and they talk to the wife or they talk to their friends, and they miss the game and they miss all the commercials. They don't want that. They want people sitting there glued to the TV.
I asked you on to talk about undrafted free agents, but you're the guy who knows everything about the draft. I'm interested in your thoughts on what the Jets did this year in the NFL draft.
I mean, they did a solid job. I mean, I personally, I had some other guys that I liked, but one man's trash and another man's treasure. Sometimes it's, I don't know what they see in practice. That's the difference. I mean, I thought Benedict Honda was going to be a good backup or some of that. They drafted two other guys to replace him, so they must not like what they saw out of him. I saw him at Pitt. He looked pretty good. He looked pretty solid. He's strong. But now I guess they didn't like them, so they put somebody else in, which you have to do. If you don't like somebody, you better change it because no one's going to say, "Oh, well, we're going to give you a do-over." No. it's hard. I mean, I would like to see them maybe sign a couple of guys now because if they have a couple of holes, like maybe an extra guard or something like that, or somebody, time to get them is right now. When like all these people are, sitting at home waiting for what's going to go on, because as soon as the season starts, people are going to start getting injured. And then if you need somebody, they're going to be somebody else. They're going to be on the team, So right now it's as cheap as you can find these guys, a lot of these guys, because, they're itching. They're not in the camp. They're not going to get paid this year. And they only have a few years left in the NFL. So, you may be able to bring a guy in and maybe even on an unguaranteed contract to, come in and fill a spot. Maybe that it might be vital. So we'll see what happens.
I have to ask, what was your favorite day 3 pick?
What? I'm sorry?
What was your favorite day 3 pick?
Oh, day 3. Oh my God. I don't like the running back. I like the big running back out of there. They say right now he's catching the ball to the backfield. I love those type of guys. Are you kidding me? Everybody loves a big, huge back that can catch the ball in the backfield and rumble down the field and run somebody over. I mean, that's what football is all about. That's so I'm excited to see what he's going to do.
Yeah, normally, I doubt, I usually have a lot of skepticism towards these reports, about guys dominating, the mini camps. But
yeah,
I did think when I watched him play, I think you're talking about Braylon Allen, the guy they drafted out of Wisconsin. It did strike me. He did kind of flash some soft hands at Wisconsin. So I do think, he might be a weapon in the passing game.
235, 262, 235, catch with good hands. What's not to like? I mean, and plus, I think, now that Rodgers has been injured, seriously, I think he's going to think about getting rid of the ball a little bit quicker. I know, if I was at his age and was going to do, his age, a nice young guy like he is, But I mean, sure, he might be thinking about, okay, I can drop this ball off a little faster now. I'm not going to sit back here and run around like I used to, So that's a possibility too.
All right, well, Craig, thank you so much. A lot of great information today. Really appreciate you coming on.
No, I appreciate it, man. You have any time.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks to Craig for joining me. This has been the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day is our motto. As always, if you enjoy the show, hit the subscribe button where you're watching or listening so that you'll never miss an episode. If you enjoy the show and listening on a podcast source, give it a 5-star review. And if you enjoy the show and are watching on YouTube, give this episode a big thumbs up. Helps us out, helps other Jets fans find the podcast. Enjoy your Wednesday, everybody. We'll be back next time to talk more Jets.